Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello, Sleepy Hollow fans. Welcome to my Season 1, Episode 4 review of Sleepy Hollow. Last time I continued my Let's Play of the 2018 Spider-Man video game. I hope you guys enjoyed that, by the way. Part 5 is already up if you're interested. And I realized that you guys have really enjoyed the last few Sleepy Hollow reviews. I've noticed how it's gotten over 300 views, so I just want to say I'm very happy that you guys really enjoy these Sleepy Hollow reviews, and I can't wait to make more of them, as I love the show and I love talking about it. Today I'll be covering Season 1, Episode 4 of Sleepy Hollow, titled The Lesser Key of Solomon, which was released on October 7th, 2013. The short synopsis of the episode is pretty much healed by members of an ancient conspiracy. Ichabod and Abby team up with Abby's sister Jenny in search for an ancient artifact. I do not know how most fans feel about this episode, so I'm pretty much going into this not knowing fan opinion. I'm just giving my opinion on this. But let's take a look at the episode and see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Sleepy Hollow. The episode begins with a cool flashback of the Boston Tea Party. We see some soldiers being ordered to bring back a crate and Crane alive. This crate is guarded by a German soldier who begins chanting or praying something, and then a huge explosion happens, leaving only Ichabod alive. Back in the present, we see Crane hilariously retelling the story on the phone with an OnStar woman named Yolanda. He's telling her the story about the Boston Tea Party, like basically the flashback we just saw, and his wife Katrina saving him after him and the horsemen both killed each other, and their blood was linked.
Surviving death, separated by time, tests the bonds of love.
The moment I saw her, I knew the bravest love is born again with each new day. The kind of love that makes the mundane a marvel, that bewilders with its magnificence. Until fate's cruel hand intervened, and in the blink of an eye, Katrina was lost to me.
I am so sorry.
I offer this tale, no matter how cruelly he may have treated you, to suggest that you do not give up, nor give in to anything less than certainty in matters of the heart.
No one's ever said it like that. Thank you.
It is I who should thank you, kind woman, for unlocking this vehicle from afar and showing me how the entertainment system operates. Farewell, Yolanda.
Thank you for calling North Star Assistance.
Abby then tells Crane that Jenny has escaped the institution. And later, we see them go back to the police station, and Abby is trying to convince Captain Irving to let her have a head start in the search, and he agrees after a bit of back and forth with her, and gives them a 12-hour head start. We then cut to Jenny in a bar asking for her things from the bartender, Wendell, who kept them in a safe, and he pretty much hands them to her. Elsewhere, we see a mysterious man who's teaching this kid piano lessons. And then he gets a phone call from a disguised voice telling him about item 37. This disguised voice informs the man that Jenny has escaped and she knows where the item is. So he's tasked with getting her and the item, and he's told that a cleanup crew will assist him. Soon after these orders are given to the man, he shows up in the bar with the cleanup crew and threatens Wendell, who takes out his gun to defend himself, but easily gets overpowered and is tossed over the bar. The men then hold down Wendell and proceed to torture him for the information they want. Wendell does eventually give them the information, but he's killed by the men anyway. Eventually, Captain Irving and the police are called when Wendell's body is found with his head cut off, and it's on the pool table, and his body is hung up on the wall. Meanwhile, Crane and Abby are still trying to figure out how to track down Jenny, and we see Jenny still on the move, and she's pretty much shown at a truck stop with a duffel bag of guns. Abby and Crane go to visit one of Jenny's foster moms, and when she's less than helpful, Abby threatens legal action against the woman, who's obviously, not caring about the multiple children she's caring for, or that she has living with her. And she's using the state money selfishly for herself. So the woman finally gives in and tells Abby that Jenny used to go to Trout Lake. On their way out, Abby tells the woman to expect a call from family services. So up at the cabin, Abby uses her past criminal skills to pick the lock on the cabin, and Crane's pretty, he finds this pretty amusing, which I don't blame him. And then they begin to look around, and Abby realizes that Corbin stayed in Jenny's life from the pictures around the cabin after, Crane points out a picture to Abby of Jenny and Corbin together. It's at this point that Jenny comes out of hiding and points a gun at Abby, with Abby pointing one right back at her, and Crane's pretty much stuck in the middle of it. They're arguing. After Crane pretty much rips them a new one and gets them to both calm down by calling them out, Jenny tells them about the night before Corbin died. She says that he visited her and explained to her that he felt death was coming for him. And Corbin said if this turned out to be true, that Jenny needed to come to the cabin and get something out of the safe. So they all work together on this, and they get out what the item is, and it's a sextant. Crane recognizes it as something from the past. So how does Crane recognize this from the past? Well, this ties into his previous flashback that we saw in the beginning. So he explains that the Redcoats had acquired a weapon that would have turned the war in their favor. So we see the flashback once again in the past, where Crane had started the Boston Tea Party to get this device. But there was a Hessian soldier who was the German soldier. And the Hessian soldier was the same kind of soldier as the horseman. And he was guarding it, and he took his own life to save the weapon, which caused that huge explosion, because he was a Hessian. And as mentioned previously, Ichabod was the only one to survive that explosion, and he went to make sure the crate was safely restored. And then when he saw that it was, he took it on a boat to give it back to George Washington, and he never saw the thing again.
We tracked the secret weapon to a shipping warehouse at Boston Harbor. As the British import tax on tea was at an all-time high, I devised a diversion to gain entry.
The Boston Tea Party? You're not telling me this.
With the help of a local politician and ally in Boston, Mr. Samuel Adams.
You invented the Boston Tea Party so that you could steal something from the British?
At the time it was referred to as the destruction of the tea. You've coined a far more festive name. Unfortunately, my plans to acquire the weapon did not proceed smoothly.
Get what we came for. That's right.
The soldier guarding it was a Hessian.
Like the horseman,
As in the horseman.
one story at a time.
The Hessian took his own life to protect the weapon. I alone was spared. I saw what it was they sent us to claim. A chest made of stone, therefore protected from the blast, covered in markings identical to this. I summoned a detachment to ferry the chest back to Washington in secret. That was the last I ever saw of it.
So after Crane explains, his flashback and his knowledge of this item, he sets up the sextant as a projector, which shows an old map of Sleepy Hollow. However, before they can study the map, a laser pointer appears and someone begins shooting at him. This turns out to be the same man who killed Wendell earlier, so we can assume that he found where Jenny was, followed her footsteps, and now they're basically... a firefight is broken out, and in the process of this firefight, someone steals the projector from them. But before and all of the men leave, however, one of the men gets stopped by Jenny, which I believe is the same man that killed Wendell, basically the leader of what you could call these so-called Hessian group. She disarms him, and she notes that it's an Uzi pistol with military specs. So they start questioning him about, what's this all about? What are their intentions? Why do they want the device? What's the end goal for them? But he doesn't answer Abby's questions. So Jenny wants to torture him for answers, basically wanting to make him talk. And this, of course, gets Abby and Jenny in another argument about, the certain methods they want to do. Abby just wants to do a normal legal police question, interrogation. Jenny wants to go more hardcore and try to torture this man to make him talk. Which makes sense, because, he killed Wendell earlier, so why not give him a taste of his own medicine? But while this is going on, Crane checks the man and finds a tattoo on him, and he recognizes this tattoo as a symbol. And it shows that this man is a part of the Rene Hessies of the 5th Battalion, which are also better known as a Shadow Warrior. Crane also reveals another cool ability, which is that he can speak German, which is pretty awesome. And he speaks to the man about the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is the title of this episode. We realize that the man says that it's a book of black magic filled with rituals to conjure up 72 demons that were found by the Knights Templar of the Crusades. He pretty much explains to them that the Hessians have always been around and that they integrated themselves into Sleepy Hollow, like how he integrated as a music teacher. While this conversation is going on, elsewhere we see Captain Irving identify, the music teacher as the man, behind the murder of Wendell. So he searches through his home, and Irving and his men eventually go down in the basement where they find all sorts of strange things. But obviously they realize he's not there. So this mysterious man, this Hessian music teacher, tells Crane that he's unsure how many there are. However, he does say that he knows who Abby, Jenny, and Crane are. He says their full names out loud, right, all to them. And he says they know this because of the demon Moloch. And he says his name is Gunther. He talks about the demon Moloch, who was the demon that Abby and Jenny saw in the woods. He tells them now that since, his fellow Hessians have the map, and he knows that the doorway will open now, that his task is pretty much complete. So he speaks the last bit of German, and then he takes a cyanide pill, which is concealed in his mouth, which obviously kills him. So Jenny and Abby ask Crane what did he say in German before he died. The last bit of German he said, Crane translates as Moloch shall rise. So once again, Abby and Jenny are at odds because Jenny wants to follow this lead alone. She wants only the three of them to go after the Hessians. She doesn't want to get anybody else involved. But Abby, being, you know, the stuck-up police officer, she doesn't want to do it on alone and just the three of them. She wants to get more backup, more help, so they, you know, make sure they can secure the group. And obviously, like I said, this causes an argument. Crane tells him to pipe down and, you know, be quiet because he's busy drawing a map of what he briefly saw earlier, which basically shows that he has photographic memory, which is another cool thing about Crane. So that's pretty cool. So they pretty much pinpoint the location of where the Lesser Key of Solomon is, and they head off to that location. The Hessians are also hunting down the Lesser Key of Solomon and eventually find that location because obviously they have the map. So while in the car, Crane asks Jenny where she learned how to fight. Jenny explains that she was pretty much a traveling freedom fighter of sorts, and Crane is impressed by this. The Hessians begin their process of summoning Moloch and the other demons when Abby and Jenny and Crane find them. And when Abby and Jenny and Crane all make themselves known to the men try to kill Abby first, and Jenny jumps to her defense. So obviously this begins another firefight, and they begin shooting back and forth as the summoned demons are trying to get out of the portal on the floor. At one point, Crane saves Jenny from being thrown to the demons, and then is attacked by another Hessian. And then eventually Jenny is threatened with death again by, you know, another Hessian saying, you know, give them the Lesser Key of Solomon or they're going to kill, you know, Jenny. So Abby closes the Lesser Key of Solomon and she throws the book into the demon pit, destroying it. So obviously since the Hessians lost, they jump back into the pit and the portal closes along with it, ending this tale. So later, Jenny is sitting in an empty room at a table with handcuffs on. So yes, she is in a police interrogation room, and shouldn't be surprising considering that was going to happen eventually. Abby comes in the room and uncuffs her, as Jenny pretty much questions Abby about, you know, what's the deal with her and Crane, you know, what's their relationship. And Abby explains to her about the two witnesses from the Bible. So she's saying that pretty much they're the two witnesses, and that's why they're pretty close, because they're trying to fight these supernatural threats together. It's kind of their duty. And she's trying to make amends for her past mistakes. Of course, Jenny tells her that she will continue to punish Abby forever because it's hard for her to forgive Abby for turning her back on her, basically. But Abby, trying to undo her past mistakes, tells her that they both lost everything that day in the forest, but that she sees Jenny for who she really is, and she's proud of her, which is a really nice moment and a good, you know, bow tie to end this, you know, arc with Jenny and Abby. So she offers Jenny a conservatorship where they might be able to get Jenny out of the psychiatric facility in less than 6 months. Abby thinks that they can work together and find the answers that they're looking for. So that's why she wants to get Jenny out. And the episode ends with Jenny explaining to her that Corbin said she would be back when she was ready, and that Jenny needs to find some way to forgive her when that time comes. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 4 of Sleepy Hollow 2 stars out of 5. Now, since this is a lower ranking episode, we're going to start off with the positives first. For positives, we'll start with the main trio: Abby, Jenny, and Crane. This episode does a good job with Abby and Jenny's relationship and their arc of forgiveness. I really like the interactions in this episode. It really did a good job focusing in on their relationship and putting an end to that arc of Abby and Jenny trying to forgive each other, for mainly Abby for her past mistake, but for Jenny to offer that forgiveness and being able to move past that so they can work together to fight these, future supernatural threats. I also think Crane was he was pretty good in this episode. He had a nice funny moment in the beginning, and I found the backstory interesting in this episode too, of how Crane's involvement in the Boston Tea Party and the Hessians. And a minor positive, I would say, for the episode would be the action. It's not the worst action ever, but it's not good either. It's just decent. But it's a minor positive. I don't, like I said, I don't think it's downright awful, but it's not the best action I've seen in the show. But that's all I got for positives, so let's move on with the negatives for this episode. Now, I got 3 major ones, but we'll start with the first one: the villains. Now, in the past 3 episodes, we've had one main bad guy. There's the Horseman, the Witch, and the Sandman Demon. This one has the Hessians. Now, multiple villains aren't bad, but these villains are not that interesting. And I think it just doesn't lend itself well because they don't build on these villains at all. Unlike the previous villains that got a lot more screen time devoted to them and got more lore and, backstory to them, these villains are kind of generic and boring. They're just a cult that just wants to resurrect the demon Moloch. And while it's interesting for Moloch's story, because Moloch's the demon in the forest that Abby and Jenny encountered, so it gives more backstory for that. But besides that, these villains aren't interesting. They're just they're just bland and boring. Nothing inventive about them. Just nothing interesting. I also gotta say the story is kind of lackluster as well. Besides, the main trio, and their relationships, their interactions. I find this episode to be having a lackluster story, basically. I mean, it's basically, like I said, it's a generic cult resurrecting demons, including the demon Moloch. Nothing new or interesting to spice it up. It just kind of feels boring, like been there, done that. Nothing really interesting to offer here. It just stinks because there's ways you can make a cult interesting, and I feel like this episode just didn't do that. They were very boring because while they gave backstory for the Hessians and how they integrated in society and acted like normal people until their day came to finally strike, while that's a neat concept, it doesn't really explore their lore or what their goal is, what they want to do. Sure, they want to resurrect Moloch, but what after that? What is their plan? They want to bring hell onto Earth. At least that's what I get maybe from this episode. I mean, that's what they imply. But I mean, it's just like there's really not much going on with their goals, which is a shame. That's why I think these Hessians just needed a bit more development. They were just dry and boring. The story just had nothing going for it. Like I said, it did good for the main trio of characters and builded on their past and their relationships and their backstory, but not the villains. So I feel like that, and the Lesser Key of Solomon itself isn't really much to be desired anyway. And last but not least, my final negative is the humor of this episode. Now granted, we had a humorous moment in the beginning, like I said with Crane. But besides that, we don't have any humor in this episode. And I know humor's not the big deal. This is a supernatural drama. But come on, Crane offers so much good humor in the previous episodes. And this one is lacking it. It just is, it's too serious. And I wouldn't mind that if the story was good enough. But I don't know, I kind of like I like seriousness mixed in with humor. It balances out the episodes well. It makes them pretty good. If you don't have those fun moments intertwined with those serious moments, it makes it not as strong as an episode. The humor is mainly the least of the big negatives, but it's still a big negative, and it still drags it down. I just wish there was a better humor in this episode, especially since past episodes showed that this can work. But overall, I would say I would not recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. This is one that I just will not revisit anytime soon. Like I said, it's not downright awful. I'll say that. But it definitely isn't one I'm going to go back to individually. If I'm doing a season 1 marathon or a marathon on the show, then sure, yeah, I might do that. But besides that, no. I don't see any reason to go back to this other than the closure for Abby and Jenny's arc. That's really the only reason the thing you're going to get out of this episode. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you agree or disagree? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in the middle? What are your thoughts on it? You think I'm being too harsh with it? Not harsh enough? I really would love to hear your opinions on it, so share them in the comments section below and we'll talk about it. And subscribe for more Sleepy Hollow reviews like this, or if you're just interested in my other content. Also down below, you can follow the links to both my Facebook, where I am currently having polls for future videos, updates for both of my channels, and discussions about stuff we talk about on both of my channels. Also, a link to my Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my Let's Play of the 2018 Spider-Man video game. So if you're interested in that, then be on the lookout. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, peace out.